Well, welcome everyone to the March 23rd meeting of the Middleton Selectboard on this Tuesday, March 23rd at 7 o'clock. This meeting is being recorded. I want to remind everyone, and without any more of that, why don't we go right on to item number 1, which is the explanation of warrant number 2120. Mr. Sheehan, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On warrant 2120 this evening, on payroll, we have an amount of $719,743. On mine, I highlighted under Public Works that there were, in the last warrant, there was no snow costs with, you knew that was coming, right, Tim?
Yeah.
So the blizzard will start any minute
when's
now.
the big snowstorm, Andy?
On bills payable, we have it's a large bills payable this period, $2,009,877. The usual payroll deductions in the amount of $93,093. Under the Council on Aging, purchase of a vehicle for $34,436. That was a vehicle that was approved as part of the fiscal 21 capital plan. That'll be used for a variety of things. A lot of it will go towards, or it will see a lot of use for meal delivery. So right now, or up until this point, they've been using the van to deliver meals, and it's not a very efficient way to do it. So they'll use this SUV to do that, and they can also use it for shuttling people around if people need a lift to shopping or to an appointment or something like that. They can use it for that. So much more efficient way to operate than the way that they've been going. A little bit further down under MELD, big period for purchase of power for MELD, $1,037,161. And then down near the bottom under the Treasurer's Department, our health insurance deductions in the amount of $326,057, and our North Shore Tech, Essex North Shore Tech assessment, $167,335. Sarah Wood has reviewed the warrant and asks for the board's affirmative action.
Get a motion?
Presented.
Thank you. In a second. We have a motion and a second. Then if you would, Mr. Houten, a roll call vote, please.
Sure, Mr. Prentakis.
Yes.
Mr. Cresta.
Yes.
Mr. Kassiotis.
Yes.
And myself. Yes.
Excuse you, sir. All right, it passed unanimously. And if I could get a motion to accept the minutes of the open session for the March 9th, 2021 Selectmen's meeting.
Move to accept as written.
Second.
Second, we have motion a second one. Again, Tim, if you could, a roll call vote, please.
Sure, Mr. Prentakis.
Yes.
Mr. Cresta.
Yes.
Mr. Kassiotis.
Yes.
And myself.
All right, thank you. Motion passed unanimously, minutes accepted. Town administrators update and report. Mr. Sheehan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of updates for the board and for the public tonight. The first one, a couple of them, particularly for the benefit of the public. This Thursday, March 25th at 7 p.m. is the third joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee. This is the formal budget hearing that the charter calls for every year. So we'll do the budget hearing for both the operating and capital budgets, as well as the review of the warrant for the annual town meeting that is coming up, and that we'll talk about later on in this meeting. Again, the meeting begins at 7, like all of our meetings have been for the last year. This will be via Zoom, and the Zoom login information is available on the agenda at the town's website, www.middletonma.gov. If you go to the calendar and click on the meeting for the 25th, the Board of Selectmen Finance Committee joint meeting, you can see the login information there, and click on that and join the meeting. As I always do, I encourage residents to participate in this process. Watch how the board and the finance committee review the operating and the capital budgets, and watch how we're proposing to spend your hard-earned taxpayer dollars every year. So it's the start of a busy season for the Public Works Department. A couple of Public Works updates. Hydrant flushing, I believe, has already actually starts next week, I think. That'll be going on for about 2 weeks. That will happen during the daytime between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. If residents or businesses experience any discoloration in their water, you're recommended to just open up your outside spigot and let that run until the water runs clear. Or if you don't have that ability, you can just run a cold tap inside the house until that runs clear, and that should clear things up for you. Transfer station news, couple of items. The transfer station will be closed on Easter Sunday, April 4th. There'll be a brush drop off on Saturday the 10th from 8 to 3:30. And the swap shop will reopen, tentatively scheduled to reopen on April 14th. It's going to be sort of a, get in, get out, no loitering, must wear a mask, but it will be good to get the swap shop open. We get a lot of inquiries about that. It's something that people really appreciate. So it's one more little step on the road back to normal, or the after times, or whatever you want to call what comes next. So street sweeping is also starting up this week, and catch basin cleaning will start next week. Paving starts in the next couple of weeks, and the DPW has started to do some work at Oakdale Cemetery, including dressing up the front of the cemetery, the entrance to the cemetery. There'll be a new gate installed, and they'll be doing some fix-ups to the building with the help of students from Essex North Shore Tech. So, and then finally, we received a cybersecurity grant from the state this year. We received one last year. It kind of got kicked off to the margins during COVID. At least the state's portion of it did. They didn't push it as hard as they intended to, because there were just so many other things going on. So they've put out that grant program again. We applied, we were successful, and so we'll be doing that again. And that's to train employees, basically anybody with a middletonma.gov or other domain, town email address, to help them understand or help them identify phishing emails and other emails that really we shouldn't be clicking on, or we shouldn't be clicking on the attachments. So I found it helpful. I took advantage of it last year, and so I think it's helpful for me both as an employee and as an individual with with every all that we do online these days. So we're getting some volunteer help with managing this. This would normally be managed by Derek Fullerton. He's got a few other things going on with COVID at this time. So he has reached out to Myra Plant, who you may recall. Myra appeared before the board a couple of years ago with a cleanup effort that she did. She was also featured recently in Middleton Magazine as having received her Eagle Award under scouting. So Myra is a student at WPI in cybersecurity and IT. Her younger brother, Rohan, is a student at Essex North Shore, and the two of them are going to be helping us to manage that grant program. So we appreciate the help. Like I said, Derek's got a few things going on, and we really appreciate anything that can stretch our resources for the better. So we'll keep you up to date on all of these things as time goes on. That's what I've got for the evening. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, and then at this time at every meeting, as requested by the town, we hold a public comment period for anyone who is interested to participate. You'll have this moment at the top of each selectmen's meeting every other week to make yourself known, make an appearance, and give us your thoughts. Tanya, do you know if we have any? I see some names I don't recognize there, but
Yeah,
I'm not
Mr.
sure.
Chairman, if people are interested in making a comment, public comment, they could either electronically raise their hand if they know how to do that, or unmute themselves and let us know.
Okay. Give it a moment there.
No, I'm not seeing
Yeah.
or hearing anyone.
Okay. All right then. Okay, then we'll move on to the third item on the agenda, which is to continue our discussion for a location and date of the annual town meeting and town election. I don't know who wants to kick this off here.
I can start, Mr. Chairman. The moderator, Barb Pacelli, is on, and the town clerk, Eileen Twist, is on tonight. We have been working since the last meeting to identify dates and location for town meeting and by extension, town election. Since, I think it happened since our last meeting, the legislature passed an act that allows us to modify the date of the town election. We had the flexibility to move the town meeting, but up until this legislation passed, we didn't have the flexibility to move the election. So that has changed, and that has allowed things to sort of fall into place. Working with all of the various parties that have a role in town meeting, we have selected Saturday, June 5th for town meeting with a rain date of June 6th. And we have identified the following Saturday, June 12th, as the date for the annual town election. The venue we recommend is the soccer field behind Memorial Hall at 48 South Main Street. Eileen talked to Chris Kassiotis at Angelica's, and he has graciously offered his parking lot for use for town meeting attendees. So we have, I think there's about 50 spaces here at Town Hall, over 300 across the street at Angelica's. So that should go a long way in accommodating what we expect will be a significant crowd, but you never know until the day comes. We're meeting with all of the other outside parties that we need to work with for tents and chairs and platforms and video and audio and all of that. So we'll put that together. That's nothing we're happy to keep the board up to speed on that and informed of all that, but it's nothing that the board needs to get too deeply involved in. But we met out there today with a video and sound company that is willing and able to help us out that day. We're meeting later in the week with a couple of other companies that similarly would be interested and available. So we feel good about the date. You never know, there's no predicting what the weather can be. I'd rather be a little later than a little earlier since we're going to be outside. And I think this is a pretty good place to be. I'd be a little concerned about being indoors early in May, and I wouldn't really want to be outdoors in late June. So I think we're in as good a place as we can be.
Andy, what time would town meeting start?
So we're still working that out, but it would be morning. And I think some of that will be dictated by the setup for the tents and audio and visual and things like that. If they can do the setup the day before, then I would suggest that we would start probably around 9 o'clock. That gets us out in case it gets too hot. I know last year Topsfield had a meeting later in the month, later in June, and it was pretty warm and pretty beastly. They were at Masco on the football field last year. If it looks like they're going to need to set up the day of the meeting, then it may force us to push back to like 10 o'clock, but I wouldn't want to start later than 10 o'clock. Barb and Eileen, do you anything that I left out that you want to touch on?
No, I think you did a pretty good job of summarizing where we're at. I think that's the best venue, given the proximity of parking, in sort of the secluded field area. We have a very aggressive warrant with a number of articles that could result in some lengthy discussion. So we anticipate a long meeting that day. So it's going to be important to start early.
I would agree.
Okay.
And one other question. So
Hmm.
with the town election being moved to June 12th, which is a Saturday also, what will be the hours of the polls being open and closed, Eileen?
Well, given the number of contested races, I think that we will probably have to follow what we've sort of talked about. We'll open the polls at 7 a.m. and we will close at 6 instead of 8. And that should be okay. If we find that if we find we have to do a 7A to 8P, we will. But I just don't see an 8P being necessary on a Saturday night. People have all day Saturday to vote. I'm not going to look to cut it back any more than that. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think some of the towns that do Saturday elections find that shorter hours actually are more the norm than you find during a Tuesday election.
Right. And so last year we did 10 to 4.
Mhm.
We're required to be open 4 hours. And so there's some, we probably could if we really wanted to push it. But I think with the debt exclusion vote and the contested races, I think
Mhm.
we're probably best to be open and available so that we're giving everybody full opportunity. And I already started a mail-in voting campaign. And actually I sent it out in the census in anticipation of this legislation being passed. And we're getting a large response. Now, I'm not sure if people realize it's just for this election because it's the only election this year, but everyone will get a ballot and we'll probably have, I bet we have 600, 650 already to go out. So that's what we're thinking, 7A to 6P.
Thanks,
The
Eileen.
hours. You're welcome.
And I'll just add on to that a little bit. The benefit of doing the election on Saturday, obviously, is for the benefit of the schools, keeps us out of the schools during the week. They'll still be in school until, I think, the 17th or 18th. And so they don't have to, it gives them all day Saturday, or gives them all day Sunday rather, to do any cleaning that they need to do at the school. And it's fairly confined to just the front lobby, the ramp, and the rooms that we use to vote. So keeps us out of their hair, makes things a little bit easier for them. And as Eileen said, really opens up the ability for people to vote. In terms of the warrant, we're going to talk about it in 48 hours. So I'm happy to let it rest until then. And unless the board members have specific questions or comments, Costa did give me a couple of edits to make that I've made, a couple of things that I missed. So I can talk about those tomorrow or on Thursday.
Okay. I think I'll be all right with that. All right, if there's no further discussion, guess we can move on to item number 5 then, correct? And that will be Mann and Mann representing Kenworth SE New England Incorporated for a new Class 1 auto dealer license at 15 Shoppers Pond Road. And I do see, yeah, how you doing, Jill?
Hi, Mr.
Okay,
Captain.
good.
How are
And
you?
I see, good, thank you. And I see Mr. Dentino with Kenworth. So why don't you guys go ahead?
Thank you very much. Chairperson Kassiotis. Jill Mann here on behalf of Kenworth SE of New England. Dan Dentino, the principal representing Kenworth, is also here this evening on the Zoom meeting. As you know, we are seeking, or Kenworth is seeking, a Class 1 dealership to operate a Kenworth/PACCAR heavy-duty new sales lot for very heavy-duty machinery, the tractor trailers, dump trucks, cement trucks, very large heavy-duty vehicles. The proposed location is in off of Sharpness Pond in Nomad Industrial Park. So I just wanted to make sure that I could show you this, the rendering, just because I think it's always a good idea for you to have a perspective of what we're doing. I wish I could share my screen. Okay, so
Yes.
There it is.
Yeah.
what a miracle, let me tell you. Technology is not my area of expertise. So I just wanted to show you this particular plan. So this building had originally been a much larger building, and it had been trimmed down to be able to suit Kenworth's needs and to address the needs of Nomad, who is the owner. So this is just the actual building. But what I did want to show you is the locus plan. So I'm assuming you can see the locus plan now.
Yeah.
So this particular property is located at the far end of Middleton. It actually is on the border of Middleton and North Andover. What you can see here is the locus, and the area identified in gray is all within the borders of Middleton. Currently, there are the 4 buildings, B, D, F, and G, are existing buildings in the industrial park. Building E is the one that will be constructed subject to the issuance of this license and the permits granted by the Board of Appeals, allowing motor vehicle repair and allowing outdoor storage, which are accessory uses that are needed by Kenworth. I just wanted to orient you though. So the way in which you would access Nomad is over Sharpness Pond. There is no direct access over Route 114. So in order to get into the park, you must drive into North Andover, go down Sharpness Pond, and then right here is where the entrance is and where the driveway comes through in North Andover. For purposes of identification, there are 3 buildings in North Andover that are also part of this industrial park that Nomad owns. And they are A, B, and this little building down here, if you can see it on the line. Okay, so that just to give you the orientation. By the way, the particular property located all in Middleton is about 55 acres of land. The land located in North Andover is about 13 acres. So let's go back to the site rendering. I had the architect prepare this plan because I thought the coloring, it just made it a lot easier to see, because it's important for the Class 1 license that we identify the locations in which there will be vehicles for sale kept on the lot. So what you see here is identification on this side of the building. I'll just follow it around. Employee parking. I think that's pretty clear, right? It's going to be employees of Kenworth. But then as you go around the corner, you'll see storage and sales lots. The reason I call it storage is because for the ZBA purposes, if it's not going to be parked, it is storage. So I had to identify these areas and then seek a special permit to allow outdoor storage of materials and or equipment, which these vehicles would be those things. But for your purposes, this would be where the new vehicles will be stored and available. So we have 6 large spaces here. Basically, again, sometimes we have tractor trailers, sometimes we just have very large other types of heavy duty trucks. And then when you migrate around the corner, you see that we have 12 storage slots and another 14 in this area. Now, these won't just be new vehicles, because as everyone knows, when you sell new vehicles, there's always that ancillary purchase and sale of used vehicles. They will only be acquired and or sold on this lot if it's in connection with the sale of a new vehicle. So this property is not this particular owner is not going for a Class 2 dealership, pure Class 1, all new. It's just under Chapter 140, Section 58, a Class 1 license does permit ancillary sale of used vehicles. What you see here, this gray area, which I thought was, I didn't even know what it was at first, are trailer stands. So because we have a motor vehicle sale dealership, we actually will have interior motor vehicle repair facilities. We service our own vehicles, and we have a parts department right here that will support that particular vocation. So if somebody comes in and is driving a tractor trailer, is on the road, has an issue, needs to come to the site, they pull in, and this is where they drop their trailer and then go into the building, because clearly you can't have a large trailer access the motor vehicle repair facility. Then the locations in back, we intentionally put the vehicles that are going to be subject to repair along the back row. That's why it doesn't say anything about sales, because the vehicles that will be located along the back in this area are not for sale. They're just going in for maintenance, and that's what you see. The building has been redesigned from what we had originally approved for the ZBA to be able to accommodate this type of use. So what you see in the back and how you see all these rows of cars are actually demonstrating to you overhead doors, and that's what it is. So the interior is a motor vehicle repair. Pursuant to Chapter 140, Section 58, Chapter 140, Section 58 and 59, we were required to deliver to you a license, basically one that has all of the information that the registrar of motor vehicles requires. And we did that. We explained the location of the premises. We identified how it was suitable. We explained to you who the agent was and what the company was. The company is this Kenworth SE of New England, right? It's a Delaware corporation that is registered as a foreign entity in Massachusetts. They do possess the right to sell Kenworth vehicles, and that dealership, that license, I shouldn't say license, that dealership agreement renews constantly. So I have extensions of them time and time again. And as you get closer to getting a project approved like this, Kenworth steps in again and reissues the dealership agreement with regard to the specific location that you have gotten approved. So some other things that you're supposed to have in order to secure this type of license is you're supposed to demonstrate that the location is suitable. I would respectfully suggest that this is a proper location, actually an excellent location for a few reasons. It doesn't have direct access onto 114, so you don't have any of those slowdowns or issues with large vehicles trying to get in and out. You go down Sharpener's Pond, there's never really a way to take a right-hand turn onto Sharpener's Pond Road because you just go in, nor is there really ever a way to take the left. It's very easy to make that turn. The industrial park itself is well suited to tractor trailer traffic. It is a very large industrial park with infrastructure that is suitable to handle. In addition, this particular facility is being constructed to meet the specific needs of Kenworth. Kenworth has actually designed its own side, its access, the turning throughout the industrial park, and just for point of interest, this has gone through a department review meeting. Mr. Sheehan was there. I don't remember if Ms. Shalhoub was there, but I know Mr. Sheehan was. And that was the meeting during which we present to, the DPW, the fire department, the police department, and the Board of Health to ensure that there aren't any issues with regard to this type of use and this type of a building being constructed. And there were no issues because, as you can see, the building has 360 degrees of access. So for the purposes of fire, that's a no-brainer, and you don't even need 360 of access. In addition, we need to demonstrate that the person is a proper person, and we do so by showing that we possess another dealership in another part of Massachusetts. We actually possess dealer plates, and we show you that we have that dealer agreement. Based on all of those facts, I would ask if the board has any questions, either for me or for Mr. Dentino. We'd love to answer them. Thank you very much for your time.
Jill,
All right.
Oh, hi, Costa. Yes, Mr. Fantakis.
would the town of Middleton, get a discount on large vehicles purchased at the dealership?
Dan?
Actually, we are on the state bid contracts, so we do supply municipalities with vehicles.
We will be before town meeting this year for a new roll-off vehicle for our transfer station. So,
Well, I expect to see a Kenworth name in there, right? That's what
price,
happens, Mr.
If
Cresta.
the price is right. If the price is right. So actually, a Question, Jill, for you. So on the previous plan you showed, so I know that the entrance to this site will be on Sharpner's Pond.
Yes.
Is there, and I know this is not part of the license, but I'm trying to orient myself here. Will there be, is there signage that is going to be on Sharpner's Pond, or are you, as part of your ZBA process, looking for signage on 114?
We do not ever have signage on 114. We always have it on Sharpner's Pond. And I don't even think there's a pylon sign with a name. Dan, did you ask? There won't be one on 114, but Dan, did you ask for a sign even on Sharpner's Pond with
Yeah.
Mr. DeGracia?
Yes, we will be looking for one more for directional purposes, since you don't want a tractor trailer going down the wrong street.
Right. So
That was actually part of the reason for my ask, was this isn't, somebody bringing their small car in, they may be coming in with a trailer. I wanted to make sure that there was a directional process here.
so there will be one when you get to Sharpner's Pond.
Okay.
Because there is no turn in for off of 114. The only other property that Mr. DeGracia owns is, this property, and there's absolutely no way to really meander about because this used to be pet supply. It's now a whole bunch of industrial uses. You can see where my pointer is. That's not Mr. DeGracia's property. It's someone else's. And there's just no ability to access off of 114, none.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you, Jill. If all is approved, when is the time frame, anticipated time frame from build out to rolling in of vehicles?
Right. So the problem is, quite frankly, COVID and the inability to secure materials. So once we get our permit from the ZBA, we'll immediately begin the process for contractor and bidding. Because of that, the normal process is 12 to 18 months. So Dan, we were hoping to expedite. Dan, what are you anticipating at this point because of that?
We would love to have this project completed by the end of the first quarter of 2022, beginning of the second quarter of 2022. I mean, we're working a lot of things on a parallel path now, where leases are being looked at, rough bids are being looked at, pricing's being looked at. So along with this whole permit process, so we're going down a lot of paths concurrently, with the expectation that we could start construction in the June timeframe. Hopefully, it's being optimistic, but we're looking to get in as quick as possible.
Super, thank you.
All right, I just have a small question as I look here. It's in regards to secondhand vehicles.
Yes.
As I read the class 1 description, it says here they're not able to take them in trade for new motor vehicles. Is that?
No, you are. So you can only take them in trade. So for class 1,
Yeah.
you must. So the issue is this, Mr. Kassiotis, that you may not sell secondhand vehicles unless you take those vehicles in. Otherwise,
Right.
you would need a class 2.
Okay, I explained it because I was wondering how would you not have a brand new auto dealership that couldn't trade things in? Okay.
Oh, it would be
Thank you for that.
impossible. Yeah, you'd
So
put
based
yourself
on
out of
that,
business.
So based on that, a Kenworth that was acquired through auction couldn't be sold here, for example. Only a vehicle that was taken on a trade.
Exactly. We don't buy at auction and bring in.
Okay.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the things on the taking in of trades, we don't really do that much. When we have someone like Market Basket or a company like that, we'll hook up with them with a wholesaler and we'll clear them out. They won't even hit our lot. We'll clear them out through a wholesaler.
Yeah. No, thank you for the explanation. I'm looking through all of these here on another. I have it up on another computer, and it just struck me. But that explains it. Thank you.
Of course.
No, I'm very familiar with the lot, very familiar with the surroundings. I mean, this is a great use for the perfect location.
Yeah.
If
So
anybody
agreed.
doesn't have anything else, I'll make a motion.
Thank you very much. So we have a motion.
I'll second that motion.
And we have a motion and a second to grant a
That's one.
Kenworth SE in New England for a new Class 1 auto dealer license at 15 Sharpness Pond Road. And if you would, Mr. Houten, a roll call vote, please.
Sure. Mr. Prentakis,
Yes.
Mr. Cresta,
Yes.
Mr. Kassiotis,
Yes.
and myself, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time
Good
and
deal.
we look forward to having Kenworth do business in the town.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Well, welcome to Middleton, Dan. Thank you.
Excellent. Take care.
Great, thank
All right.
you.
Bye.
Okay. All right. Now on to item number 6, which is to discuss and vote to implement pay equity study and accompanying non-union classification plan. Mr. Sheehan, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we've talked about classification plans for a couple of years now. We've been working on this really since one of the budget meetings 2 years ago, where the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen gave us pretty clear direction that you didn't like the way that positions were reclassified, wages were adjusted, things like that, and directed us to go forth and do a wage study and a classification study to make sure that we were compensating people where they should be compensated. We've done that over the past 2 years. Most of that work really was done in the first year. We were close to implementing about a year ago, and then COVID hit and kind of knocked us off balance and knocked us off of our desks, and led to us pushing it out a little bit more. We get back into it. We needed to do a little bit more work. We've done that work, and what I included in the packet for you for tonight's meeting is the classification plan. And basically, I should back up a little bit. This includes only non-contractual, non-union employees. So anybody who's covered by a union or covered by a personal services contract is not covered by this classification plan. So myself, the CFO, the chiefs, those positions are not covered by this. It doesn't cover that many employees, but it covers most of our department heads. And what we found in doing the equity study was that, or in doing the pay study, was that it confirmed what we suspected and what we saw on an informal basis, that we had some significant pay equity issues inside the organization that we needed to adjust. So the consultant that we brought in went through the positions, classified them according to the duties of the position, and then compared them to comparable positions in the communities that we typically use as a little 12 or 15 communities that we use for as comparables. And she looked at those communities and did the wage analysis on the basis of those communities. So the positions are classified, and it's important to keep in mind that it is the positions and not the individual employees that are classified, so that as people leave, as positions vacate, it doesn't change substantially what happens with the wages. Obviously, if we have a department head who's got 2 years of experience, they leave, and we hire somebody who's got 25 years of experience and a master's degree and other certifications, that would be justification for some differentiation in wages. But when we place the positions on the classification plan, classification schedule, it is based on the position and not on on the individual.
Oh, Andy, in the one-page document you provided us with the 8 different grades, are these where the positions currently reside or where you expect that they should reside?
This is where we recommend that they reside. They kind of reside all over the place. Now we don't have a classification plan now. Some decades ago, apparently we did. It's not clear when that ceased to be maintained. So we've got people sort of sprinkled all over the place now. And so this is what we'll be asking the board to adopt is the classification plan that's in the packet tonight. And then in terms of,
And is there sort of a pay range within each grade that was recommended?
There is, and there's a number of ways to do that, and a lot of communities will do. They'll do grades, and then they'll do steps within the grades. Other communities will just do a minimum and a maximum. We've done a minimum, middle, and max, and then so the implementation, how this plays out in terms of implementation, is, or what we would suggest to the board is that upon adoption of the classification plan, classification schedule, we would move the employees into that schedule, adjust the pay. We'd like to do it in the current fiscal year, adjust the wages to meet that, to meet the placement on the classification schedule, get everybody onto the schedule. So people that are off the schedule, that are low, that are not in, if it's a grade 5, put those people into 5, wherever they, if they're below 5, put them onto the beginning grade 5. And then in July 1 for the new fiscal year, we would suggest that we adjust those individuals based on the factors that we would normally evaluate, which is the things that I mentioned before: years of experience, education, certifications, other types of qualifications, things like that.
Are there individuals within a grade whose current pay is above the maximum for the grade?
Yes, and that is common. And I've gone through a couple of these in my career, and what I have always seen is that there's different terminology for this, often referred to as a red pencil. You sort of circle them, and we don't reduce their pay, but they're going to be static until such time as the scale or the compensation schedule catches up to them.
I was going to say, if you could kind of expand upon that a little bit. So what's kind of missing from the one page that we have here is I just don't know where these salary ranges are within each grade. And are you proposing like a 25th percentile and a 75th percentile within the grade? Or is this like 10 steps within the grade? So I'm thinking of, the federal government and the state government, where they'll have like a GS 13 on the federal government, step 1, step 2, step 3, all the way to step 10. During steps 1, 2, and 3, you may get a COLA, but every year you would move from step 1 to step 2, step 2 to step 3. After you reach step 3, it would be every 2 to 3 years you would move steps. After you reach step 5, it would be like every 5 years you would make, and there were incremental jumps there, in addition to any COLAs that were approved as part of that. Is that kind of the model you're looking at here? Because again, just looking at 8 grades, I see where you place the positions where you'd like to see them, but what I don't see here is, what is the lowest level of grade 1 salary? What is the highest level of grade 1? And and it would kind of be helpful to see where folks are falling in that.
Sure. Yeah, and we can certainly provide that. So, so what we've laid out is not a a step system. It's more a minimum, mid, max. And one of the things that often happens with these plans is that they don't escalate. And so they get adopted in year one and nothing changes after that. And then, you know, people go through year after year, they get their step or whatever it happens, however it happens to be structured. And then within a few years, everybody's at the top step and there's no further room. What you really need to do is you need to escalate it every year for some inflation factor. And so Tanya, I'm probably not doing a great job explaining this and probably leaving things out. There are things that that you want to throw in, add on to this?
No, I think you're explaining it accurately there, Andy. Yes, the idea was not as you were saying, Brian. It gives us a little more flexibility and not having to go, step by step through the grades. And part of that is if we do update the grid every year for a COLA, we don't want people to have a step on top of a COLA necessarily. We want to leave ourselves flexibility for, doing things like performance evaluations, and would that, move you along up more, or, are things going just fine and a COLA is appropriate for that year. So it does give us a little more flexibility, but it does get all of our employees within the range of, like, truly the range of comparables. We have a few that are well outside, even close to where our comparables are. I mean, the good news is a lot of our employees are within the range, and there's not a lot of adjustments to be made, but there are a few outstanding ones.
So for someone, and I'm not asking to name anybody, obviously, but if there is somebody that is either their head is up against the top of the range, or they are the kind of the red pencil, red line that you talked about, Andy, in that regard, what would happen fiscal year to fiscal year? Their salary would stay static until, that range increases?
Yeah, so if somebody is beyond their, let's take grade 2, since there's no positions in grade 2. So we're not talking about anybody in particular.
Mm-hmm.
If we had somebody in grade 2 whose compensation was beyond the top range of grade 2, then their pay would stay static until such time as the scale caught up to them as part of the annual escalation.
So that scale will change based on, so let's just say for all 8 grades, we say in the next fiscal year, there's going to be a 2% cost of living adjustment,
Mm-hmm.
just using that for round numbers. And let's say grade 2, just for sake of discussion, grade 2's maximum salary is $50,000. And that person that is at the top of grade 2 is at $52,000. The next year, the top of that would be $50,000 plus 2%, or 102% of $50,000. And until that catches up to them, and then they would continue to ride the top of the scale going forward.
Right.
So is your anticipation that this board would make a annual recommendation on what these grades will see for an increase? Because you've heard my annual diatribe on this, and I'm so happy and appreciative of the work you guys have done on this, that we're now moving to rather than just everybody getting a set salary increase based solely on across the board. There's the ability to now have a little performance review in this. There's some ranges, so we are not inadvertently placing people way outside the range, or for those that are down at the bottom of the range, or even outside where they should be at the bottom of the range. It's the ability now, rather than just saying, here's your 2% raise, here's our process to start moving you up. So are you expecting this board to annually say, we're going to say the ranges on grades 1 through 8 will be this for this year? Or is it just going to be based on a formula?
I would say that it would be an application of a rate or a percentage increase to the entire table. So if it's
You know,
2%,
set annually by us or
it would be set annually
calculated
as,
by a formula?
it would be set by the board during the budget development process.
Hmm.
Similar to what we do now when the board says we're going to do for non-union employees, we're going to do 2% or we're going to do 1%. The other component of this, and this goes to your earlier comment, Brian, is that maybe when we're looking at the budget, we know we can accommodate a 2% increase across the board. We may not want to just do 2% across the board, but we may want to reward everybody with 1%, and then the plan gives us room to do merit increases or whatever you want to call them based on performance evaluations and things like that.
Okay, no, I appreciate that. And I mean, that's obviously the way the federal, private sector is operating.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, even the federal government started to move to that direction. And the state has just gone through a multi-year pay equity review similar to what's happened here. One last question, if I could, Mr. Chairman. So for those individuals, we'll use grade 2 again because there's nobody in there. Say position ABC is in grade 2, but that individual now is being paid at a rate that falls within grade 1.
Mm-hmm.
Is the plan to immediately move that individual into grade 2, and where within grade 2 would you move that individual? You know, and I want to get to equity here. I want to get to parity as reasonably as possible. But are there any grades here where we're going to see some individuals that are getting, and what is likely needed, but percentage-wise larger increases, and is that going to be a multi-year step to get them there, and where would they be in that range?
Right. So to the first question was, so taking your earlier example of a grade 2 employee, the bottom step of grade 2, let's say, is $50,000. We have a grade 2 employee whose current salary is $48,000. So what we would suggest is, upon implementation, and we're being aggressive, and push back against us that we expect that we're being aggressive in asking for April 1 implementation. On April 1, that person would move to grade 2. Their salary would jump on April 1 from $48,000 to $50,000. And then on July 1, we would make a determination of where in grade 2 they should be. And again, that's based on things like their education and certifications and experience and things like that. Not necessarily longevity.
And may it be is your plan so that 48,000 is moved to 50 on April 1, and then July 1, after town meeting approves budgets, is the plan to, and let's say that budget is just using this for a number, a 2% increase.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the plan on July 1 that person at 50 moves to 102% of 50, or is there going to be a 1 or a 2 year process to move that man or woman to where you believe as the manager and or department head, where you think they should be based on their experience, their capabilities, their education, their et cetera? I'm just trying to get to, are we going to, between now and July 1st, is the plan to get them exactly there, and then they continue to ride the grade level?
Right. So we want to get them onto the scale as quickly as possible, or into their grade, and get their wages to the grade as soon as possible during the current fiscal year. And we did budget for this last year when we built the budget for fiscal 21. And then for July 1, this would be the adjustment within the grade based on the determining factors of the comparative characteristics, the education and certifications and things like that. So to use the example I used before, they jumped from 48 to 50 in April. On July 1, it's conceivable that somebody could go more than another 2%, depending on what their qualifications are. The other thing to keep in mind is there are unique issues within particular positions within grades. So, and these are external issues, market-driven issues. There are certain positions that that command more than other positions within the grade, even though they're classified together. Because there may be a scarcity of those positions, of people to fill those positions, I should say, that they warrant a higher level of compensation than somebody else in the same grade. And so those determinations would be made in placing them in on July 1. We did talk about sort of staged or phased implementation. And we decided against recommending that because for many of these employees, and now I'm talking about the employees rather than the positions, but it's sort of interchangeable in this piece of the conversation. For many of them, it's been a long promised adjustment that hasn't happened. And we know that in the case of people that are below their grade, we know now what, where they are and how far down they are and have been. And we didn't think that it was fair to drag it out further. We feel strongly about that.
What would be helpful to me is if I could get from you and Tanya at some point, grades 1 through 8, what you think the low, medium, high is, and really where's that sailing? And then for the roles that are within these grades now, if I could kind of see where they are, and I will say first, for your effort of April 1st or as soon as possible, getting folks at least within their grades, I'm completely on board with that. And I'm in vehement agreement with you on that. What I'd really like to see is what is that going to take to get those that are outside of their grade to at least get them on the platform, and then where you'd like to see them on July 1st. Mm-hmm. And then I'd also like to see, for somebody that may be a red line, what is the runway it would take for them to get back in the schedule, so to speak.
Okay. Yep, we can do that. Tanya, we had done a rough analysis of what it would look like for the current year adjustments. That was in the 15,000 range.
15 to 17, I think. Yeah, we were, there were a few, we're working on a few little models or tweaks to, make sure we have all the correct data there. So yeah, it's certainly less than 20.
And that would be the impact for a quarter. If it was implemented April 1st, the 15,000 is the quarterly impact, which means it's a 60,000 impact for an entire year.
In that range, yes.
Yeah, okay.
So you are not, just so we're clear, I don't think you are, but you're not looking for anything retroactive to July 1?
No. Okay,
just wanted to be clear on that. Yeah, so it would be helpful to see what that would look like for the quarter and then what that would have been annualized. And then secondly, for everybody on the range, where do you think they would be on July 1st? And I know on Thursday we have our joint meeting where, as we get further down the road, we'll have some clarity on, what is being built into the budget for overall percentage increase. But I am so happy about that there's a built-in in this process that to be able to start rewarding for performance and outcomes, and for those that are going above and beyond and expanding their education or whatever else it is.
No, it was a good exercise. We had a lot of went into it with a lot of assumptions, some of which were confirmed, and others we kind of looked at it, or we got the data and we reviewed the data and we went, okay, wasn't expecting that. And some of it was worse than we expected. Some of it was better than we expected. So, you know, data, you can do a lot with data. Data can certainly be manipulated, but it's, and part of the reason that we didn't do this in-house was to give it that objectivity, because we wanted to have an outside perspective looking at this without any implied biases on our part.
Well, and it helps you look at the position and not the individual.
Exactly.
Now, when this gets approved, you and Tanya are going to have some one-on-ones with everybody on this list, and I assume there's been some education already. I mean, this isn't the first time we've talked about this, and
Right.
The individuals that fall into this category know who they are. So to kind of inform them of what you found, what you're doing, and obviously the July 1st is contingent upon a town meeting approval of a budget, but what we're going to be presenting.
Right. Yeah, and there'll certainly be conversations with the affected employees.
Some of these positions report to independently elected either individuals or boards.
Correct.
Do any of those individuals or boards have the ability to enter into a contract with their employee?
Under the statute, there are only certain positions that legally can have personal services contracts. Town administrators, chiefs, CFO.
I think a treasurer collector can.
Library director.
I know at one
I know
point,
the assessors have historically done contracts. I don't know what the duration is. They're not recognized under the law for more than a year, at the most a year. You know, I think for cases like that, we would hope that this would be respected as the guideposts.
Well, I mean, it is a respect for guideposts, but I mean, this board, the finance committee, have historically gone to town meeting with a recommendation of what a budget will look like. And including as a number is, I mean, the consensus that we do every year, not just what we think our revenue is going to be, but what our consensus is going to be on what we're going to be able to provide to increases to our non-union employees and our non-contracted employees. I mean, we take the same direction this board does on our union contract and the percentages that we're going to negotiate and give. So, I mean, I think to your point, Costa, is while it may be a separate elected and or managed position, it's ultimately this board that is making the recommendation at town meeting with the finance committee on that number. So I don't think we've ever been at that position, nor do I think we ever will be at that position, but I think there's always been a ladies and a gentleman's agreement that we work together on it.
Okay.
Andy, I know the CFO is not on here because it's an appointed with a, I believe, contractual language.
Yeah.
In the future, you would expect that position not to be on this list either?
Yeah, because it's a contractual position. We did collect data on that. So when the time is appropriate to execute a new contract, whether it's an extension or a midterm revision, we would use the data that's been collected.
Okay.
So we'll get you the data that you've requested, and put this on for the next meeting. Is that the way the board would like to approach it?
Okay.
That works for me.
That's fine.
And again, just a big thank you for the work that's been done. I know you brought a consultant in, but I know there was a lot of work that you and Tanya did on this. And I am, you know, I knew this day was going to come, and I mean, we're moving in a direction from all the work that you've done on human resources and the process there, from how we approach our negotiating with unions, but really how we work with our non-union employees who really have all been painted with a standard brush every year of here's your percentage increase, thank you very much. And now we have the opportunity to actually look at inequities and ways to give managers tools to reward accordingly. So thank you very much.
Tanya deserves a lot of credit on this. She was the one that was managing the contract with the consultant and doing a lot of the gathering job descriptions and things like that on our end. So she deserves the credit for this project.
Thank you all. I do think this will mean a lot to the employees too, individually, but also for morale and for the, perception that we are a fair employer. So I think it will go a long way.
Yeah. Is there anyone currently over the maximum of their grade?
Yes.
More than one person, more than one position?
I can think of one, Tanya. I don't know if you can think of others.
One.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would ask, as part of the communication you're doing with the individuals, just make sure that there's clarity of, why the ranges have been built as such. This isn't an arbitrary number that you've picked.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Okay.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll hold on a vote until, is that the idea?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All righty. Okay, thank you. All right. Any other new business or topics that we didn't anticipate? We can discuss now. Yep.
We have, I think, 2 unresolved supplemental requests. Is the expectation that we would make decisions on those on Thursday or at a subsequent meeting with the FinCom?
The hope is that we can wrap those up on Thursday. We do have another meeting on the calendar if we need it. It's a little unclear whether we'll need it. There may be a couple of loose ends to tie up. I'm putting together a memo for the board and for the finance committee for Thursday, talking about the supplementals and the other things that are still hanging out there, the information that we have now that we didn't have before, any information that we're still waiting on. So if we can resolve things on Thursday, great. If we need to meet on April 8th, we have that date penciled in.
Okay.
Andy, so I know you sent out some information of with the congressional action and the president's signing of the additional COVID relief dollars that are coming. I saw the chart that MMA had provided that you had sent over with about 900,000 directly to the town and upwards of maybe about another, I think it was like 1.6 million, which would have been county dollars.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing now that the state administration may be pulling back the county dollars to potentially allocate differently rather than on a population basis within the county dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to find out if you've heard anything more about that. And secondly, if you're going to have any more clarity maybe by Thursday's meeting on what those dollars mean, when they come, what they can be utilized for. I know some of them can be utilized for really revenue loss that cities and towns have been hit with, and we and others have been hit with it. But what can they be actually used for that are COVID and or economic related?
So I was on a call today with the Lieutenant Governor and other members of the administration. They're still groping in the dark for clarity on what the ARPA dollars can be used for. ARPA being American Recovery Plan Act. So there's a lot of unknowns still. When the CARES Act was passed, it took about a month for the Treasury Department to issue guidance for the CARES dollars. That was back April, I think it was, of last year. So they're hopeful that A&F, state A&F is hopeful that within a month of March 9th, I think was the date that it was signed, that there will be guidance out of the Treasury Department. The Lieutenant Governor and the others that were on the call today did not indicate that there might be any kind of reconsideration of those county dollars. It seems like it is fairly clearly written into the legislation that communities in abolished counties like Essex County, those funds would be distributed to the individual communities. There may be a slight tweak in the way that those are allocated. It's a little unclear how that will differ from the main appropriation or the main distribution of funds, and I think that will come out as part of the Treasury information. In terms of when the distributions will come, I think the first one it needs to come within either 60 or 90 days of the passage of the act, and then the second tranche comes a year after that first distribution. So whatever's coming will be here within 14 and a half months, all of it. The statute says that it is for COVID-related expenditures and COVID-related lost revenues. It's conceivable and likely that a community doesn't have lost revenues and COVID expenses that equal what is currently earmarked or assumed to be earmarked for that community. So it's a lot of uncertainty about what happens with that delta, what happens with that difference between what you actually lost in meals revenues and other things, what you spent to battle COVID, and what the distribution amount is. So there is money for certain types of infrastructure, but it seems narrowly written to include water, wastewater, and broadband. Can we use that to extend or to loop water mains or to do fiber projects or things like that? A lot of unknowns there. I think there'd be in more rural communities. I think there's greater opportunity or probably greater clarity on what you would target. You know, if you're in an area that's poorly served by broadband or doesn't have broadband at all, and you know you're going to get $1 million, you lost some amount of revenue, you had some expenditures, and there's another $600,000 that you think is going to be left over. You plug that into your broadband network. It's a little different here, and so we're all sort of prisoners waiting for that guidance from first the Treasury Department and then administration and finance at Beacon Hill.
Andy, do the elementary schools get money that's different, or
Yes.
just sharing what the town gets?
So the prior relief packages had ESSER funds. There was
They
ESSER,
just got about a month and a half ago.
correct. Yeah. So there was ESSER 1, which came out last spring and summer, I guess, and then the most recent one just recently. There'll be an ESSER 3 that will go out to elementary schools. I don't know what the amounts are for that, and I don't know what the limitations are on allowable expenditures on that offhand.
And I believe ESSER 2 and 3 will also go to the regional schools as well, both Masco and Essex, I think.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, I think Masco and ESSER 2 was $600,000 in addition to 2 other grants that they should have received that same week. And the elementary school should have received as well.
Right. So I think a lot of school money is, probably going to go to additional HVAC and facility improvements that maybe didn't get fully covered or fully implemented or permanently implemented in the first round. Whether some of that, whether we can use on the municipal side, these funds for some of those things is a little bit unclear. So it is certainly welcome funding. And if we're able to do some business assistance programs for local businesses, particularly small businesses that suffered during the last year, I think that'd be great.
Okay. I have one question, quick question while we're here in regards to, I had a complaint over in the East Street area about Goddard School dumpsters. What's the start time for dumpster collection? Because we have that in the bylaw, no?
I don't think there is. The issue came up recently at another, it wasn't a dumpster, it was deliveries at a different business. And that particular business had an arrangement, had made a commitment and had an arrangement with their supplier that they would only deliver during certain hours of the day to avoid the early or overnight delivery system or delivery issues. I don't think that there is something like that in place for dumpsters, but I'll check with the health department.
So I know that we had a restaurant in town a couple of years back that we had gotten some complaints of a dumpster pickup at like 5 a.m. There was some language that was in the original ZBA order of conditions that allowed that use at the facility. But if I remember correctly during the discussion, that there was also something in our bylaw that had an early, the earliest that an activity like that could occur within a location. So, and I'm not sure if the Goddard School had any type of ZBA requirement on that site. I know the property as is can only be used in an educational environment because of the way it was zoned. So there may be some ZBA language that may have that in place.
All right. Yeah,
if all else fails, sometimes just the town reaching out to the operators to hope that they'll be a good neighbor.
Yeah, we have a good relationship with Mark at Goddard School, so we can reach out to him directly, but I can reach out to Inspectional Services and Health to see if there's anything in the ZBA permit and if there's anything in the regulations under the Board of Health under noise.
I would appreciate it. And like I said, it's been a couple people there, and of them, there are some volunteers to town, to things. So just to give some validity to what they're telling me, like 5:45, 5:45, that type of thing. So anything you can do and get back to me, I appreciate it.
Will do.
All righty. If there's nothing else,
Motion to adjourn.
We'll be up, motion to adjourn, and we'll see some of you Thursday night.